Vishnu Gurudev Maheshwara Guru Shaksha Parabrahma Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Dugame Patimi Andashash Karapade Shakibaya Sanandu Shantu Shantu Vadam Vadam Mukam Kavit Bakarian Sabarashmarane Panga Girlangana De Katara Gane Shaksha Parabrahma Tajmai Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Jevanarotimam Devam Sarasatim Vyasam Titojo Nishna Preshu Badveshu Nityam Bhagadesava Bhagavati Uttamashoki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Nikama Kapatudagaritam Padam Shukamakamita Javisamyatam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamarayam Mahora Horishikava Krishna Sadama Pagate Ganvihi Karonashta Dushamasha Parona Koduno Ditaham Tramapiyadabhishuta Vishatamivu Samapyadena Virambadikram Pragyahidohamaram Sanklesha Nirvana Musanti Nanyatam Anartya Bashamam Shakshad Bhakti Yoga Lokashitana Chakra Sadvadashamidam Dharmashonastidabhum Sham Vishaksena Notpidayadu Shami Hevi Kevadam Atapum Vyadujasha Svanashama Shonistidasha Dharmasha Samsida Hariodim Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kantara Kantanamostam Jayato Shuruto Pango Mama Maner Matergati Matsavasha Param Boja Radhana Madana Mohani Shriman Rasarasarambi Bamsivara Karsan Vaneshanopagi Gopanata Sriyasaram Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Radhagara Shimashanasto Shri Shri Radha Shri Govinda Prastadabhi Smara Marami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Taya Chajikari Taya Krishnaya Govinaya Mono Mangalang Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gururajita Mangalam Paridikaksho Mangalayatano Hari Om Narayanaya Vidmihi Vasudevaya Dhimihi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Chavidmihi Vishnu Padniti Dhimihi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sari Hari Priya Namastubhyam Dide Tapti Kanchana Gonagi Radha Vindavaneshwari Vishavanasute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Shubham Karoti Kalyanam Ragam Dhanasambharam Satibudi Manasana Deepa Jyoti Namostite Deepa Jyoti Dhanardhanam Deepa Jyoti Paraparam Deepa Metaram Deepa Jyoti Namostite Om Aganati Marandasha Ganangana Sharakya Chaksurun Miritam Yana Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yana Bhutare Shayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sita Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Sri Rupam Sagaditam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Sam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabarutam Paridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishikan Vitam Sham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutare Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauramati Pacharini Nirvishesa Nivadi Praskita Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Morning Brand, good morning Jean. Today is Transcendental Tuesday and we're going to talk about the culture of Maharaj Ambarish. This is the 14th in a series of shows that we've presented discussing the great qualities of the devotee, Maharaj Ambarish. Maharaj Ambarish was sovereign over the Saptadvipa, the entire 7 planets, 7 continents of the earth. He was attacked and harassed unfairly by a great powerful sage named Durvasa Muni. Now, Durvasa Muni was acknowledged as a great yogi. And yet, during this pastime between Ambarish and Durvasa Muni, what happened was the Sudarshana Chakra, the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this weapon is the source of illumination within the universe. It's the source of the light of the sun and the moon. It's the source of knowledge. Knowledge is also a metaphor for light. And wherever the Sudarshan chakra is present, things become clarified. Things get sorted out. There's no hypocrisy. There's no pretense allowed in the clear, bright sunlight of the Sudarshana chakra. And so we see who's who and what's what when the Sudarshana chakra rises like the morning sun. And although Durvasa Muni was generally applauded by people in general, foolish people who don't know any better, they accepted him as a great soul and a great personality, and certainly is far above the average. Nevertheless, if such a powerful person, we have to ask ourselves, ends up being ignominiously chased on the backside throughout the universe by the Sudarshana chakra, burning him from behind, then we have to conclude that he is inferior because of his dealing with devotees. Whatever good qualities he has in other areas, he failed to recognize the superior status of the completely surrendered devotee, Maharaj Ambarish. And in fact, Krishna himself calls those who do not dedicate everything in the service of the Lord, he calls them as abhidusha, rascals. Now, don't get angry, don't get upset. Oh, Caru is going around talking about demons and rascals. Well, Krishna is saying it himself. I'm just repeating what Krishna said, not me saying it. Krishna says, Avijanati mam mudha. Mudha means donkey. Mudha means full. Avijananti, those who do not know me, and of course, if you don't know Krishna, you can't very well serve him with love and devotion. Avijanati manusim tanumashadam. They think that I have assumed this human-like form and personality. Parambhava janato. They are ignorant of the fact that I am, in fact, the source, the cause of all causes, the original primeval Lord from whom everything comes. Mama bhuvam manatin. They do not know my transcendental nature and my dominion over all that be. Elsewhere, in Krishna says in the 7th chapter, Namam duskritino mudha. Kritino means merit, means qualities. Durvasa Muni had immense qualities. He had mystic yogic powers. He had the discipline. He could do penances and austerities like no one else. He was, in fact, nothing less than an expansion of Rudra, the anger incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. And that was his Achilles heel. He always kept losing it by anger. He was so predisposed to anger that he would go out of his way to pick a fight with people. If there was a little fault, he would blow it up and magnify it and treat it as if it was a big fault. In the case of Ambarish Maharaj, there was no fault. Ambarish had been fasting for a year, came down to the moment in time when he had to complete the fast. It was a vow that had been following for 1 year. The moment was fast approaching. To complete the vow, he had to take some food after fasting for 12 months. But his guest was some distance away saying Gayatri in the Union River, procrastinating, and delaying his return. The moment was fast approaching. As we explained yesterday, Ambarish looked deep into his heart where Krishna's residing. And when the devotees are on the horns of a dilemma between a rock and a hard spot, they go to Krishna. Karpanya dosho, when there's dosha, there's so many faults. It's a fault, there's a dosha if you go left, there's a dosha if you go right, there's a dosha if you go forward, there's a dosha if you back up. Whenever any option that you consider is unacceptable, it's full of doubts. When you don't see a way, the difference between the non-devotees and the devotees is at that point where the non-devotees fall apart. I don't see a way, I don't know what to do. And they have a meltdown. The devotees realize that where I don't see a way, Krishna sees a way. Where I don't see anything possible, Krishna makes the impossible possible. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Maharaj Ambarish looked inside where the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides in the hearts of all living beings. And he got his answer. Drinking water is breaking a fast and not breaking a fast. It was perfect. Durvasa should not have been offended by Ambarish's drinking water. He should have been flattered. Ambarish had been fasting for 1 year. And because his guest had arrived, Durvasa Muni, he was honoring his guest in such a way as to not complete the fast by taking solid food. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what the injunctions say. So out of respect and honor for his unannounced atiti, his unannounced guest, Maharaj Ambarish forsook taking solid food. Can you imagine the temptation? I was sharing this the other day. One time I went on a 35-day fast. It wasn't a total fast, or just a juice fast. And it wasn't, I didn't take any sweet juices. I didn't take any oranges, grapes. It was all vegetables like cauliflower, cabbage, carrots. So during the last few days of the fast, the only thing I could think of was a fresh organic tomato with a little bit of pink Himalayan salt on top of a slice of sprouted wheat bread. I was thinking that constantly. My system had been so purified by the fasting that I didn't think of any junk food. I didn't think of cookies, or I didn't think of pies or cakes or halva or shrikant or sweet rice or malpura, because my system was so purified. I was literally hankering, drooling over a slice of sprouted bread on top of which would sit a nice, thick, juicy slice of organic tomato with some pink Himalayan salt on. Can you imagine after fasting? And that was me just having a juice fast. Maharaja Ambarish fasted for a year. Can you imagine how much he might have wanted to sink his teeth into something solid, to use his teeth for the first time in 12 months? And yet, out of respect, deep, deep respect and appreciation for his unannounced guests, Maharaja Ambarish, he passed over taking food at the appointed hour. He even put his own vow in jeopardy. In one sense, taking water is not eating. And so from that point of view, he did not complete his vow. It's another point of view that taking water is eating. You can break a fast by taking water. So from that point of view, he did complete his vow. But the point is, it's not clear. It's not cut and dry. If Maharaj Ambarish had taken a little bit of food, there would be no doubt his vow would have been completed and fulfilled. But he was willing to put his vow in jeopardy, at least to put it in a gray, ambiguous, equivocal area, by taking water instead of food. And this was out of respect for Durvasa Muni. You would have thought Durvasa Muni would have been awed by the self-control and the hospitality of Maharaj Ambarish. And yet, because, and I don't know if you've found this true, when you get angry, you may be, this may be you, or you may know somebody, probably all at least know somebody like this. It's a fact that when you get angry, all kinds of powerful chemicals course through your bloodstream. You get a kind of a perverted pleasure, a high, a kick out of anger. You can be addicted to anger, just like you can be addicted to alcohol and drugs. And because you want that kick, you want that high, you're going around looking for confrontations. You're going out of your way where someone you imagine that someone slighted you. They may have had no intention of slight. They may not have even been talking about you. They may have been talking about somebody else, but you pick up on that and you immediately jump to that conclusion, which brings you toe to toe, face to face in a confrontation with that person. All it is just an excuse to get those anger chemicals flowing through your body and to get a bit of a kick out of it. I don't know if you've noticed this about people that have an anger addiction, that have an anger problem. They're going around with a chip on their shoulder. They're going around critical of people, thinking the worst of people, very defensive, full of paranoia. That's Durvasa Muni. However many good qualities he had this proclivity, this addiction to anger. And so, whereas angry people will often imagine a fault, or they'll take a small fault and magnify it and blow it up, make a mountain out of a molehill, just in order to get those chemicals coursing through their veins. Ambarish, not only did he not do a fault, he showed the deepest respect by staving off his hunger, by delaying his taking of solid meals further, out of respect for the fact that his guest. And Durvasa wasn't showing any respect for Ambarish. Ambarish had invited him upon arrival to sit down right then and have a meal. Ambarish, or Durvasa Muni, said, well, I think I'll go and say God to the Ganges, and I'll It's not far away. I'll be back. Just keep everything waiting for me. But he stayed a long time. He abused the hospitality which Maharaja Ambarish had offered him. Maharaja Ambarish had a fresh, hot meal ready for him, turned his nose up at it, was offensive himself, went off, told Ambarish, I'll be right back. It's not far away. It won't take long to say Gayatri. Went against what he told Ambarish. He spent much more time saying his Gayatri than normal. He's intentionally acting a provocative way. Maharaja Ambarish was not provoked by the foot dragging of Durvasa Muni. He did not respond in kind to Durvasa Muni's minimizing his position. He accepted it. Yes, he's a great yogi, and I'm just a householder. I'm just a king. I'm a pound, shilling, pence man. So I'm gonna be happy with whatever sort of little squeezes he puts on me. Ambarish deeply honored Durvasa Muni, but being disposed to anger, Durvasa Muni knew by his mystic powers that Maharaja Ambarish had sipped a little water. He knew that sipping water can be considered breaking the fast. And he got into a towering rage and then threw his little fire weapon at Ambarish, which was then counteracted by the Sudarsana chakra of Krishna, which had been placed in the palace of Ambarish. And then because of the fact that Durvasa is running very foolishly, very miserably throughout the universe, being chased by the Sudarsana chakra, and because the Sudar chakra shows us what's what and who's who, we know that those who take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord are in fact the greatest transcendentalists, and those who do not recognize such person as special persons, those who see them in terms of nationality or ethnicity or gender, they have hellish mentality. I remember in Australia, I may have told this story before, been giving classes like this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday for quite a few years. So I'm sure if you've followed us, you've heard these stories before. If somebody came, an author, a writer, he wanted to do vignettes. He wanted to interview devotees to see what they'd been before they became a devotee. And I think he was a psychologist, and he wanted to know what are the trigger points, what profile, what type of people are susceptible to joining a cult, I suppose, is the bottom line. And he came to Prabhupada to ask permission to interview his disciples as to what their previous lives had been before coming to devotional service, and Prabhupada refused. He said it doesn't matter. He says they might have been wealthy or poor, they might have been educated or uneducated, they might be high-born or low-born. Doesn't matter. It was all black. A life without Krishna consciousness, without the association of devotees. No matter what other qualities you have or achievements that you've attained, it's all black. There's no credit to one who is not aware of and engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. This is what Krishna says, as I mentioned. Namam duskritino mudha prapanditena ramayaparitam asharam bhavamashidam. Kritino means merit. Kritino means good qualities. Durvasa certainly had these. But he misused his qualities by offending a devotee of the Lord. He misused his good qualities by manufacturing an imagined offense and then going so far as to try and kill Maharaj Ambarish. This is called mudha. Mudha, dull-headed, not intelligent, not sharp enough to recognize the difference between Maharaj Ambarish's activities and those of an ordinary man. Maharaj Ambarish used all of his senses in the service of the Lord. He engaged in the worship of the Lord in the temple with his hands, with his legs, with his voice, with his mind, with his intelligence. He used his money in the service of the Lord. Durvasa Muni, on the other hand, did not serve the Lord as far as we know. And not only did he not serve the Lord, but he went out of his way to offend a servant of the Lord. So because of this type of ignorance or this lack of good fortune from one's previous life, Such Naradhamas, such low-class, bottom-rung people do not surrender the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though Krishna is clearly Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has all the qualifications. He's certified Asato Devalo Nara Shayam Chavabhabhisime. He's declared as such. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitam, Param Purusham, Sasanam Adidem. You are the original person. You're the supreme abode. You are the supreme pure, the supreme resting place of all living beings. And Arjuna declares himself as such. Ahustam Risha Sarve Devashir Narasharam. Arjuna says, what I have said is confirmed and has been confirmed throughout all of the scriptures, throughout all of cosmic time by the great saints and sages. And in spite of all of that, those who are Naradhamas, low class, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, or those who partake of the asuric nature of demons, cannot recognize Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God, nor can they recognize the exceptional qualities of a pure devotee of the Lord. Going so far as to attempt the murder of Maharaja Ambarish without any reason indicates that this Durvasa Muni is extremely, extremely hard-hearted, going around with a chip on his shoulder, looking for provocation, looking for pretexts to fly off the handle and experience the cheap thrill of adrenaline chemicals flowing to the body. Now, contrast the attitude of Durvasa Muni with the attitude of Ambarish. Now, coming at Ambarish was the fire weapon of Durvasa. Durvasa was actively and obviously and graphically going out of his way to try to kill Maharaj Ambarish, even though there was no offense on Maharaj Ambarish's part. Now, did Maharaj Ambarish retaliate? Did he allow himself to be provoked? He did not. Apuryamanam acharapradisham samudram apaprasanti yadvat kamra bhafa tabashita pratinikushu yota. In the Bhagavad Gita, the qualities of a devotee of the Lord are described. Among them is a deepness, is a deep, deep, deep tushti pushti, heartfelt satisfaction. Devotee is compared to an ocean that no matter how many rivers are emptying into the ocean itself is still calm. Surface is not disrupted because of the depth of the ocean. Devotees are so deeply Mahamanita Magna Chitta. No matter what tortures his father inflicted upon him, Prahlad Maharaj did not feel in the least bit disturbed. He did not even identify his father as a maldoer, as a miscreant. He thought, I'm just getting what I had coming to me by my karma. Ambarish Maharaj could have taken offense easily. I mean, he should have, in fact, you might say, taken offense at what Durvasa was doing him. But understand what's happening here. Ambarish is not just a noble man who's overlooking a great offense. He's not, number two, second option, he's not a noble man who's overlooking a small offense. It's not that due to his nobility of heart and mind, he's taking this great offense and minimizing it. Due to his positive spirit, Durvasa Muni is taking what was an offense and magnifying it, maximizing it. Now, on the other hand, Ambarish is not taking a mountain and making a molehill out of it. Durvasa made a molehill and imagine a molehill and made a mountain of it. Now Ambarish Maharaj is not taking the mountain and making a molehill. He's not forgiving what he considers a small offense. No. Ambarish is not considering the attempt of Durvasa Muni to kill him as an offense at all. He's not considering it as offense. He's thinking that what Durvasa Muni is doing, that fire weapon, come to me, I deserve it. I deserve it. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano banjatmeva ridhagavira jivetiyo muktis parasadayava. Devotee of the Lord does not see the immediate cause. He sees the remote cause. That whatever is happening to him, good or bad, happy or cold, happy or sad, honorable or dishonorable, success or failure, is ultimately sent in his direction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to make and to mold him, to teach him, to mature him, to qualify him, to go back and join the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. We find, therefore, devotees of the Lord are non-envious. They do not identify others as their oppressors. They identify the cause of reverses, challenges, and betrayals and attacks as being sent by the Lord so they can learn important lessons and become purified. Maharaj Ambarish, if he'd been even a noble man of this material world, once the fire weapon of Durvasa Muni was counteracted and Durvasa was being chased by the Sudarsana Chakra, he would have had every right to take satisfaction in that. He would have had every right to have said he's getting what he deserves. He released the fire weapon. He got the boomerang effect of the Sudarsana Chakra. He's reaping what he sowed. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm a impartial, dispassionate bystander. It's his problem. He created it, and he's got to deal with it. Ambarish Maharaj furthermore could have said, who am I to stop the power of Krishna's disc weapon? Who am I? What is my power compared to the power of the Sudarsana Chakra? He didn't take any of those postures. He didn't think along any of those lines. He immediately jumped in and prayed for the well-being of Durvasa. As soon as Durvasa took off, being chased by the Sudarsana Chakra, he was going to be away for a year. It's going to be a year before he did the rounds of the universe, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu. And then Vishnu sent him back to Durvasa, Ambarish, the one he had originally offended, to act excuses. Now, as soon as Durvasa took off running, Ambarish prayed for his well-being, prayed for his well-being, had not taken offenses, had not even considered there was an offense made. Ambarish considered himself the offender. Yade ni yada hi bhagavan prita sarva ganashrayasham sarva bhuta bhuteshu dvijadvam vaja vijarha yada te bhagavan prita. Maharaj Ambarish, in the absence of Durvasa, feeling for the suffering of Durvasa Muni, not distancing himself, not separating himself, but just like the head feels a cut on the finger, because it's the head's job to look out for the whole body. So the empathy of Maharaj Ambarish was there, feeling the heat vicariously that Durvasa Muni was feeling. It says, Yadahi Bhagavan Prita, Eka Sarvash. The Lord, he describes, you are the source of all good qualities, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, wealth, and especially mercy. Of all the qualities of the Lord, mercy is the highest quality, is the jewel which decorates his crown. Shakespeare said, the quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest, it becomes the sceptered monarch better than his crown. Becoming Krishna, the all-supreme personality of Godhead, the Lord of all creation, is the mercy quality. Maharaj Ambarish prays to his dearmost Lord, Lord, if there is any credit that I or my family members or even my ancestors have stored up in the course of our service to you. And remember, he serves the Lord 24/7. Even a small service frees one from the greatest danger. Even a small service ingratiates one to the Lord to the point that the Lord never forgets even the smallest service. And yet Maharaj Ambarish Satadam Kirtanam Yatantashta Namasyam Tashanti Chara Manticha. He is serving the Lord 24 hours a day, not presuming upon that service, but saying to the Lord, if I have performed any service to you, please take that credit. Please take my bank balance. And if it will cause the Sudarshan to back off and free Durvasa Muni from his suffering, then please, I want to donate the sum total of my credit, my punya, put it in the account of Durvasa Muni so that he can become free from his suffering. Wow. Wow. And eventually, when Durvasa Muni came back after 1 year and he was forgiven by Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj didn't even forgive him. He didn't think there was anything to forgive. He just thought that Durvasa was acting according to the will of the Lord. So when, due to the well-wishing attitude of Ambarish, the Sudarshan was finally called off, and Durvasa Muni was in the presence of Ambarish. Durvasa Muni made this famous statement, such a transformation of heart, such a turnaround. He now knew about devotees. Aho anantam dasanam mahatam drishtam adyahe kritagasho pipadrajan mangalani samhishate. Aho ananta dasanam. Said today, ananta dasanam. Ananta means I have perceived, I have glimpsed something of the unlimited qualities of devotees. Mahatam. I realize now that though they may be doing activities which superficially resemble the activities of an ordinary man, cleaning, cooking, making flower garlands, music, dancing, auto repair, graphic design, I now know, and because the activities of the devotees are all for the satisfaction of God, there's no comparison. Kama prema donaka vrimaloa arehima. Metal and iron are both golds, but not of the same value. So action, self-centered, self-aggrandizement, self-ego-based actions are like iron. And actions with the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in mind are like gold. Both are actions, but they're not of the same quality. They're not of the same value. The actions of the devotees stand out above and beyond the activity. So the self-centered, selfish, non-devotee. So Durvasa Muni said, Mahatvam Drishtamadi, I've seen with my own eyes the compassion, the forgiveness, the nobility, the selflessness of devotees of the Lord, to the point, Krita Shoga Titadrajan, though I had only the basis of motives towards Ambarish, I attempted to murder him through no fault of his own. He received that. He received my malevolence. He received my violence, my attempt to murder him with meekness, with mildness, with detachment. He turned it around. He took all the bad things, the negative energy, the negative vibrations that I had sent his way, and he turned them around in such a way as to do good to me, to relieve me of the suffering which I myself deserved, which I myself caused, and in doing so to teach me a lesson about the special position of devotees of the Lord. When the demigods came to the ocean of milk and prayed to Lord Vishnu, this Hiranyakashipu is a case of meningitis in the head of the universe. He's destroying the sacrifices of the Brahmins. He's harassing the cows. He's causing the sacrifices to be canceled. He's done every provocative thing. Why, Lord, have you not yet intervened? And the Lord said, Navadi al Prashante al Shashuto. I am waiting for one thing. I'm waiting for him to cross one line. And that one line that he has not yet crossed And because he has not yet crossed that line, I have not yet retaliated, but he's about to do it. Give a fool enough rope and he will hang himself. He thinks he's immune. He thinks he can do anything and everything without any consequences. And because of that headiness, because he's now been so carried away by the vow which was given to him by Lord Brahma, now he's going to go so far as to do something unthinkable, outrageous. In his intoxication, in his pride, in his obliviousness, now the father is going to try to kill his own son. Prahlad, Navari Apashantya, the son of Prahlad, although born as the son of the greatest demon, although born in a dynasty of demons. Nevertheless, the qualities of this Prahlad, Navari Apashantya, he is deeply peaceful. He, like Ambarish Maharaj, though having been harassed and tortured, did not rise to the provocation, remained peaceful, deep, satisfied like the ocean. Narari Apashantya Shashuta Mahatmanam. Yes, Prahlad is, although 5 years old, not physically mature, nevertheless, because of his devotion, because of his tolerance, because of his kindness and compassion towards all living beings, including his enemies, Prahlad is a Mahatma. And that is the conclusion also of Durvasa towards Ambarish. Mahatmas Ajam Drishta, I've seen with my own eyes that these devotees of the Lord, they are Mahatmas. Why? Because he has silently, meekly, and mildly tolerated all of the injustices and all of the misunderstandings which I have leveled towards him. And he has emerged victorious. The great sage, the great yogi, the incarnation of the anger mood of Lord Shiva, bowed down with tears in his eyes and folded hands. He touched the feet of Maharaj Ambarish and begged first his forgiveness, and second, begged that Ambarish would be merciful upon him. He wanted now what Ambarish had. He wanted the seed of devotional service to the Lord, which can only be given, can only be passed on by devotees of the Lord. After this incident, Durvasa Muni became totally convinced of the power of Bhakti Yoga, how it had eclipsed his power as a mystic yogi. And therefore it is said by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, there's a chapter, the 6th chapter, which is called the Yoga of the Supreme. It's entirely devoted to yoga. Krishna describes Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Jnana, describes all the types of yogas. And in the very last verse, the 47th verse of the 6th chapter, he says, Yoginam Visara and Madgata Shadiyabhata Temayokta. Of all yogis, Madgatena Antaratmana, he who makes me the goal, whose activities center, focus on satisfying me, Shraddha Bhajata, who worship me with great faith, Teme Yuktatamo Mataha. They are the topmost devotee. And this is amply and graphically, definitively, conclusively proved in this pastime between Ambarish Maharaj and the great yogi Durvasa Muni. So we'll talk more tomorrow about the culture, how it is the devotional culture, the bhakti mood in the heart of Maharaj Ambarish, how it manifested itself in the temple, how it manifested itself in the world, how it manifested itself to the unfortunate people in need of charity, how it manifested itself to such people as Durvasa Muni, who came upon him as an interruption, as an uninvited guest. We'll see all the different aspects. We'll look at the culture of Maharaj Ambarish from at least 5 different viewpoints, vantage points. That's it for Transcendental Tuesday. Appreciate all of you for joining us here. Who do we have? Thank you, Anjali. How it is a devotional culture. We talked last week, I believe, about the culture of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is like many countries. Countries have their preferred mode of dress. They have their preferred music. They have their preferred foodstuffs. Similarly, the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, Golokadam, is like a culture. It's like a country. It has its preferred food. It has its preferred songs. It has its preferred music. It has its preferred way of dress. It has its preferred food, plants like the tulsi plant, preferred animals like the cow and the peacock and the monkey. It's a country just like any other country, but the difference between this country and other countries is this was internal and full of bliss and knowledge. Generally speaking, before you get a visa to travel to a country, they like you to know a little bit about the country. They like you to have informed yourself about the country, so you won't make any big faux pas while you're there, so you'll be able to fit in and contribute. So similarly, before you go to the spiritual world, you have to learn the elements of Krishna culture, and we're going to study that. We're going to look at that tomorrow and how it was manifested through the activities of Maharaja Ambarish. Going to the kingdom of God is not in the least bit a matter of belief. I believe, so I believe I'm going to go to the kingdom of God. I believe I'm saved. I believe it. No, it has nothing to do with belief. It has everything about practice, and it has everything to do about culture. So tomorrow, we're going to look at Ambarish's culture, and we're going to learn what the culture of the spiritual world is. And the more we become acculturated in this way, the more eligible we will be to go back home. We'll get our visas stamped and approved for going back home, back to God. In the meantime, thank you, Brent, for being with us. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Bhai Bobby. Thank you, Manasa Ganga. Thank you, Govinda Dev. Happy Transcendental Tuesday. Bhakti Gary. Govinda Dev, such an interesting point about getting high on anger. And it comes with its definite hangover too. We can imagine Durvasa Muni. He's now in the aftermath of that chemical rush. You can imagine how emasculated he feels, how foolish, feels like a horse's butt, probably. He doesn't probably even recognize what he did. He may not even remember everything that he did to offend Maharaj. So pumped up was he with chemicals and anger. Yeah, so in the aftermath of anger, there's always weakness and depression in its wake. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Govinda Dev. Just below him in the comment section of Facebook, Manasa Ganga says, it's so easy to find fault with devotees who are trying to serve Lord Krishna according to the understanding. Perhaps instead of confronting them or gossiping about them, we should sincerely pray for Lord Krishna to help them. You know, devotees like Ambarish, they don't even criticize non-devotees. They don't even find fault with them. They simply pray for their rectification. They pray that Krishna within the heart bestow light and guidance, direction upon them. So how is it then that we get in the face of other devotees? We go on Facebook, we print publications full of the worst sorts of accusations and blasphemies about devotees who are not perfect, but who are doing their level best to serve the Lord. We treat the non-devotees better than we treat the devotees sometimes. So good point, Manasa Ganga. Thank you very much for bringing that up. And Anjali gives her consensus to that when she talks about a devotional culture. Again, Govinda Dev says, Jesus said to love your enemies, but you have to read Bhagavatam to see what that actually looks like. There's genuine love for Ambarish towards Durvasa Muni. Genuine love. And that love has conquered the envious heart of Durvasa Muni. Martin Luther King, he said, there's love and there's hate. And love is more powerful than hate. You know, we have to learn to love and not to hate, because love will eclipse hate just like light will defeat darkness every single time. Thanks very much for those nice comments. Appreciate all of them. Appreciate your being with us. We'll come back to you about the culture of Maharaj Ambarish, culture of the spiritual world, tomorrow for Wisdom Wednesday. In the meantime, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.